Okay, sorry I'm a couple minutes late, everyone. It is 6:02. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Committee of the Whole for March 7th. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Fleck.
Here.
Mr. Guerin. Mr. Gentry.
Here.
Mr. Quagliano.
Here.
Mrs. Melendi.
Here.
Mr. Troy.
Here.
Mrs. Walker.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Before we go to the Pledge of Allegiance, I think it would be appropriate if we took a moment of silence to honor the life of Jacob Keltner, McHenry County Sheriff Deputy, who lost his life in the line of duty today. Thank you. Okay, and let's have the Pledge of Allegiance. Is this Mrs. Robbins' classroom? You don't look like Mrs. Robbins.
From the SES classroom at Heinemann Middle School, we have Mrs. Robbins and a few of her aides that are joining her, and 4 students. If everyone could come up.
Hi, I'm Sophia Boydston, and I'm in 7th grade.
I'm Logan Haig. I'm in 6th grade.
Ryan Rexroth, 7th grade.
Michael Lynn, I am in 7th grade.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Follow Sophia and Ryan. They'll lead the way.
Turn on the microphone. We can just speak normally. Okay. Parents, you can go right on up and take all the pictures you want. Feel free. Best part of the meeting is the paparazzi. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions if you don't mind. First of all, thanks for leading us in the pledge and coming to our meeting. Do you guys have any idea who we are and what we do? Go ahead.
You're in charge.
I'd like a recording of that, please. Yes.
You guys basically make up all our rules for our schools to keep us safe.
Okay, that's pretty good.
You're in charge of our education, transportation, and each students themselves and how they are in behavior-wise and academic-wise in their classes and school.
Okay, that's a great answer. How about you?
All of what they said.
I was hoping you would say that. Yeah, that is pretty close to what we do. We're members of the community, and we get to work with the teachers and the administration to help provide the best education that we can for all you guys. And it's a good example of what you guys are doing here. You're helping lead us in the pledge, and you are participating in your classes. What's the favorite thing about the classes that you're in? Any of you?
Well, I just kind of like the classes in general. They're a lot of fun to be in because all the teachers are great.
Awesome. Okay.
Well, I actually told this in my IEP meeting today. This is the fun activities, like when they assign stuff that's actually kind of fun, like in science, making butter or ice cream or going on to the Atwood trip or, you know, just stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Did you do the Atwood trip already?
Yeah, I did the Atwood trip
Oh,
already.
good. How about you?
I love science a bunch because of all the different things that you can do. Like right now we're making bird beaks and we're going to be testing them tomorrow and the next day, I think.
Okay,
And it's just overall fun.
good.
The same what he said, but I really like choir because I get to sing.
Oh, nice.
And I'm going to be doing solo ensemble.
Oh, you are? When is that?
I have no idea.
Okay. Are you ready for it?
What?
Are you ready for it, or do you need to more practice?
Well,
more?
I still have to pick out my song. I have theater choose from, so.
Okay. All right. Well, very good. I want to thank you guys again. We're going to come up with you and take some pictures if you don't mind. If you want to scoot over to the middle, and then we'll join you and grab some pictures. So thanks.
I still have no idea what I'm doing. So you do still sit down? Oh, okay.
Board members, while you're there, I've been asked by the parents to pass on an official thank you for support in staffing, teachers, aides, and the general support for this classroom has been phenomenal over the last few years. So thank you from the parents.
So are you an orchestra or choir? I saw your shirt. Both. Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, parents.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Armstrong, do we have any public comment?
I see none.
Okay. There being none, let's move on to revision and adoption of the agenda. Let's see. Looks like we have curriculum, we have finance, human resources, building and grounds, legislative, Board of Education. Is there anybody that has something that they want to remove from the agenda or revise? Okay, since there's none, I will make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented. Second from Ms. Melendi. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. On to curriculum, and Mr. Guerin is not here today, so Mr. Gentry, you want to pinch it?
Sure. First item up is 5.1 assessment update. Dr. Schlicker.
Thank you. This is really truly just a brief update, and so Dr. McCrindle was kind enough to put together a little one-pager with just some summaries for us. And the one piece of it that I want to point out is, you know, we are entering our spring assessment season. It seems like we're always in assessment season, but in the spring it gets a little bit busy. You may have heard some news stories over the last little while. I think I read one that said, "Park is gone." You know, they sort of trumpet it like that. Basically what happened is that, yes, a test called Park no longer exists. It's now called the Illinois Assessment of Readiness, so it's now the IAR. So, you know, within my career, we've had the IGAP, the ISAT, the Park, and the IAR. Now we have this year, but essentially what it is the same questions as Park. They've sold the question banks. which have been purchased. So they are still similar questions, and those are good. They're good questions. They relate to the standards. I think, they do assess what we want them to assess. There was a little bit of back and forth about what platform it would be hosted on. That was really more of a contract bidding issue with the state. They have determined for this year to continue it on the same platform, which is Pearson Access Next. And so that will remain the same. So just wanted to sort of reassure everybody that I don't think from the student perspective there will be really very much change at all. We do have a couple of our school buildings, as you see in the update, that have been randomly selected by the state to do some piloting of new sections. It does happen frequently because they do field test questions before they bring them into regular rotation, so several of our buildings will be doing that. But other than that, really nothing different than what we've seen in the past. So with that, you've just got the kind of overview of assessments, and if anyone has any questions, I know Dr. McCrindle would be happy to pop up if we have any details we wanted to discuss.
Sure.
On the IAR, it's talking about the shortened assessment times. These are shortened assessment times?
Yes, they are.
It just still seems like so long, but how long were they shortened by? Is it significant, or? Thank you.
It's the number of units that were shortened. So in ELA, there's a whole additional one, and so they've shortened that down. And then the math time frame went down was 120 down to 90
Okay.
minutes.
120.
So same number of math units, but the ELA they dropped one. But 3 of our schools get to take the pilot ones. So
Right. Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you. Brings us to our next item, Huntley University, Dr. Schlichter.
Thank you. And we are actually really, really excited to present this. This is sort of the culmination of, I'd say, about 2 years of work from a committee of staff and administrators. You may recall that we've had items about Huntley University several times under development in the strategic plan, and bringing this to fruition is, I think, a huge accomplishment for the committee and for the team that worked on it. So essentially what we're looking at here, our goal with this was really to design internal professional development system that would compensate staff and really reward them for owning their own professional learning, making choices about what they wanted to learn, and would also have some sort of other benefits of developing teacher leaders in our district. So for example, if a staff member, rather than saying, oh, well, we need you to learn this, if they were to say, I really want to learn about performance assessment, I think it would help my students, this would be a way that a teacher could log on to the system, and I'm going to talk about that in just a moment, choose some modules that they might want to study, and truly become an expert in that area, be compensated for it, which is great because internally we want to reward people for that kind of initiative and also for learning these key areas. And then come back to their building or to the district and be an expert in that area, be able to contribute to institute days, to team meetings, and really enrich for their own students and for their teams as well. And so, again, just a little one-pager, but to give you sort of the quick synopsis, this is something you'll hear about in education sort of frequently. It comes up at conferences, and it's sort of a movement, this idea of badging. So for a teacher to say, I'd like to study this, I want to earn this quote-unquote badge, which would be sort of a symbol of achievement, and then would have that compensation along with it. We're building out a system in which we would have 2 levels of badges. So one would be foundational. It would be sort of the entry level. So I want to really get my feet wet studying this. And then there's the teacher leader badge, which would be a much more in-depth process. The committee actually spent quite a bit of time building that out. And that would have more robust compensation, more long-term teacher leadership contribution that would be potential for that. And then potentially would be something that might even be able to help keep our teachers in our district. Because when we look at what teachers right now can advance on salary schedules for, it's for university classes, which are great because they get master's degrees. It contributes back to the classroom and so forth. But we wanted to build sort of a parallel system that would really allow our teachers to advance within the district for things that they wanted to study, not have to go out to universities to get that. Because sometimes those things don't always align exactly to what it is that we're studying or what we would have in our strategic plan. So what we've designed through that committee work is the use of a platform called Digital Promise. Digital Promise is hosted by, it's actually the host organization for the League of Innovative Schools, which we recently joined just last year, you might recall. And so we've reached out to some of those schools and talked a little bit with them about how are they using this platform. And there's a link in the packet, so you can feel free to poke around. It's actually kind of fun to see what all is in there. But essentially, teachers would be able to go in and either for free or for a low fee, they would say, well, I'm really interested in this. I want to apply to do that. There's a proposal process, and once that's approved, they would either be then in the process for that foundational badge or for that teacher leader badge. And these are actually very robust experiences. And so that's the one piece I want to point out, because I think a lot of us assume, like, well, I've done webinars before, or I've done, online learning. This actually isn't that. In fact, most of it is not online learning. Most of it is sort of a designed learning experience. There might be some reading or some foundational work that they would do, but almost all of it would be in their classroom, generating evidence, generating artifacts from their students. They would submit that to earn the badge, and once they had it, we would then know about that and be able to provide that compensation. So Ms. Vitucci is here, and she was on our committee. She's also been sort of our main HEA contact for this, so we've been working real closely with them. And I think it's a super exciting way for us to really, I think, reward our own teacher expertise, build it, and then also build in some systemic supports that really encourage people to take that on. So this is something that we are hoping, and we've kind of discussed a pilot concept. What we'd like is to try to get 8 to 10 teachers this spring yet to pilot just one. So one badge, see who wants to raise their hand and pilot and give us some feedback on it. And then we, at that point, would maybe tweak a little bit of the details for a full rollout in the fall. So super excited that this has come to fruition. It's a pretty cutting edge concept. A lot of districts have some concept of this, but I think a fully fledged program like this is something that's really going to help set our staff apart and really be a draw for our staff. So very excited about it. And if anybody has any questions, we are more than happy to answer them. I don't know, Dr. Rowe, do you have anything you'd want to add to that?
Not specifically, other than just to share, my appreciation for the group. As Dr. Schlichter said, this has been a culmination of about 2 years of work between our curriculum office as well as human resources. And I think the Digital Promise platform is strong. And I think that not only is it time for us to change the conversation around what professional learning is, but it's time for us to stop sitting around and waiting for when can we provide PD to our teachers, when can we give training on the 4 days that we have together. We've taken a number of steps with our instructional coaches and the on-demand PD that they're able to provide. But this really provides the opportunity to dive in deep on something they're interested in that aligns directly with the classroom and connects to our strategic plan and the direction that we're heading as a district. I like this because it's a third party who is evaluating and grading and offering feedback. The beauty of this is a lot of them are for free, and once you turn the assessment in, if it's not up to the standards of the organization, they'll send it back for corrections and improvements that they can then resubmit. It's a well-known and reputable platform that we are very confident in and very excited to roll out, as well as the fact that our teachers can work on specifically targeted professional learning opportunities that can connect directly to their classroom and move them on our salary scale that is only beneficial here, meaning this is a retention activity for us to keep our wonderful teachers that we want to keep and help them move to be a little bit more competitive than some of those schools to the east who like to poach our great teachers and bring them to their staff. So thank you for the work. We really appreciate it very much.
Any questions? Go.
Chatty. What is the typical cost for each badge?
The cost that the teacher would pay, or to us?
Total.
In general? So
can you break it down?
Yeah, so there's no cost to us for this platform, so that's part of the beauty of it. We're not contracting with the platform. This actually it's an open source platform that some teachers just in random districts might go on it and do it just for their own interest. Some of the badges will cost, so if a staff member picks one that has a cost, typically the cost is maybe $30 to $50. The staff member would bear that cost, so the district would not be paying it. For us, the cost truly would be in the compensation. So part of that for the pilot, and Mr. Zier has been working with us and working with HEA, and so we're intending to bring a letter just to formalize the pilot terms for that compensation. But the pilot the compensation for the badge would be from us to the teacher, and we're going to be piloting just that foundational badge, which is a little bit more of kind of like it's more contained. It's kind of a one-shot badge. The teacher leader is a combination of 12 of those together that could take a teacher up to 2 or 3 years to complete, so that would be more robust.
That was really my trying to get at that question. How long would it take to get a teacher leader badge?
Yeah, it's a 3-year, and again, this is going to be, again, we'll need to pilot it just to make sure, but based on some other district structures from the League of Innovative Schools, we would say to a teacher, if you would like to follow this teacher leader badge pathway, they would propose a pathway. I would anticipate we will curate a few different pathways that they could use if they wanted to. The districts I talked to actually said, how many of your teachers actually go research and try to put together their own 12-stack proposal? And they said, not very many. Actually, most of them use the ones we do because it's kind of complicated. But it'd be 12, so they'd have 3 years to complete it. And then there would be a renewal process where they would have to continue their professional learning by completing additional badges over the next several years in order to maintain that status as teacher leader. And really, I think where we fell with HEA as well is this is robust, it's rigorous, and we really want it to be worth something to teachers, both professionally and financially. So we want this to be something that is worth doing, like Dr. Rose said, that would be a true incentive to stay here. So while each individual badge would have sort of a one-time stipend attached to it, the badge, the teacher leader together would be something more robust. And we haven't completely ironed out exactly what that would be. That's going to come after the pilot as a separate proposal for the full package, and it would obviously be negotiated. But that's kind of the concept.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for covering the renewal. That was my question on. So the other question is, are you looking to limit the number of teacher leaders? If there's a large influx in one particular building, and I don't even know what those numbers are, but as this continues to develop and evolve, I think it is important to have that PD, but at the same time, is there a concern of having an oversaturation? If that question makes any sense.
You know, I'm less concerned about having an oversaturation, and actually, to me, the concern more is just making sure that what we have is financially sustainable. So what will be written into procedures that will come back after the pilot's done, and you'll get to sort of see all of these, is first of all a limit on how many individual badges one teacher could do in a year. So in other words, I can't just rack up 25 of these things and keep getting stipend after stipend. There'd be a limit on that. As well as at the beginning of each year, we would inform staff. It'd be a formal process to let HEA and the staff know if something occurs and we don't have the funds to do it this year. We would let them know anybody who's in the teacher pipeline or the teacher leader pipeline could continue, but that we would not be taking additional proposals that year, just on the front end to protect the district, to say if we don't have the funds to do it, we can't do it. So I'm not so concerned about the idea that we have too many teacher leaders, because I think especially in a district our size, if we could aspire to a place where every single teacher wanted to step up and take that role, that would be awesome. If we had people in every building, that would be great. We'll have to just kind of see how that pans out. But for me, it's really more of keeping it manageable and making sure that we can keep our arms around that. Because as we have that renewal process, we're going to want people to contribute. We're going to want to find what's comfortable. Not everybody is cut out to present at an institute day, but they might be cut out for helping their PLCs or working with teams or pushing into other classrooms to model lessons or things like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking through. It looks like there's about 400 of these micro credentials that are out there, and it's National Geographic, it's PBS, it's NC State, University of Wisconsin. I think this is really quite a menu of things that people can go through and really pick what works best for them. So I'm pretty excited about this.
Thank you. Yeah, that aspect of adult learning where we provide choice. I mean, we all know as learners, like, the things we choose to learn are the things we really actually learn. As adults, the things people tell us we have to learn, maybe a little bit less. The other piece I think is great about that, Mr. Fleck, is that we've got maybe some related service staff that might be interested. We've got counselors, social workers. There's something for everybody in there, so we're not just saying, oh, you can study math if you want to. That just might not be applicable to our nurses, for example, but we would want all of our certified staff to be able to take that opportunity.
And from the platform itself, you said there's no cost to it, so where does the support come from?
It's actually nonprofit, but so basically the platform is an intermediary. So the organizations like some that Mr. Fleck mentioned, the Institute for Personalized Learning is another one. Digital Promise partners with those outside organizations to host these. So the organizations, either some are universities and they do it nonprofit, some are just actually nonprofits, so they make no money on it. But they host, in Digital Promise, they host them, and then that organization, if they feel the need for a fee, like I said, it's usually $30 to $50, and oftentimes that has to do with how difficult it is to evaluate the evidence. So however they've developed the micro-credential, it might be a little bit more robust in terms of the timing. But yeah, it's not a profit-making venture for them.
You risk it all from, I guess, just from a sustainability, can someone decide one day just to turn it off?
Well, much of what, if I could, much of what Digital Promise offers are supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, HP, Verizon, Apple. So they are grant funded, and Digital Promise has been around for a good while. Okay. At this point, no, I don't have a concern for that, and the direction that education is going, and this is an open source. This is becoming more and more of a commonplace in education, from teacher lesson plans to materials and sharing of ideas that are non-proprietary. So if some funds were to dry up, I think they will easily find others that would support this type of learning, pushing innovation in the classroom. It's a hot topic right now.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to get on board, and a lot of people with millions and billions of dollars want to have their name attached to programs like this.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Sorry, not Mike. I have one more. It's actually for you. How was your experience of being part of this committee, if you don't mind?
Hello. The committee itself, it's been 2 years of work, and where we started from was kind of drastically different than where we ended up. I think we're in a much better place. I'm excited with the diversity of all the different classes that teachers can take. The experience itself was a good one, going through, should we create our own, should it be a Digital Promise format? It was a good way to get where we are now, and I'm really comfortable with the format, the program, what we have set up.
Okay.
And,
No, because I know their input and recommendations, but I'm curious from your aspect, because you have a different representation and a different set of eyes, and so I'm trying to gain some perspective.
Oh, absolutely.
From where you sit, being an HEA representative, how overall this is coming across to the HEA. Obviously, it's good, but
it is.
I just want that perspective.
Yeah, from an HEA perspective, having individualized learning where teachers could benefit from all these different pathways is really fantastic, because a lot of the PD we have done in the past doesn't necessarily always, it's not applicable to everyone.
Okay.
And so here you have the option to do something that is more applicable to you, and learn the way you want to. So instead of just taking a random graduate class because you need a CPDU hours, you could take this, learn what you want, and still get recertification hours or a stipend or whatever that is. I believe it is incredibly beneficial for teachers.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay. Anything else? All right, thank you very much. Move on. I'll take the liberty to try to combine 5.3 and 5.4 because I think they're fairly routine each year.
Yep, they're very routine each year. So it's the membership dues. The one is after the board meeting. The two middle schools will get on and go ahead and register. As I am looking at the memo, it looks like 2 lines did get cut off on my graph, so I will go ahead and update those. The 2 that are on there, all the athletics are on, but we will also be continuing with the Scholastic Bowl and cheerleading at the middle schools. And so I don't know how I covered that up, but I will uncover that with the words. So that's an additional 140 for each school as well. But again, that is just, again, routine to register our dues for that. And then the high school 5.4 is for the IHSA
Great.
component.
Okay, any questions on those 2 items? If not, we will carry those forward and turn it over to the Finance Committee. Mr. Quagliano.
Finance Committee, 6.1, we have our payables, purchase orders, impress, checks, and disbursements. Any questions related to those items?
Nope.
That we will move them forward to the board for approval. 6.2, monthly fiscal updates. We have Debbie's in the house today. All right, good deal. Mark must be out and about.
Actually, for the fiscal updates, I really don't have anything beyond his memo, unless you have any questions.
Let's see. Okay. I would just, he attended, right, the Alliance? So you were there too, right? So maybe, and you guys, so do you want to talk about that at all? As far as, or is it, okay, so we'll just wait on that. It would have been his fiscal element of it, so that's fine. Just looking through the rest of the report, I don't think anything jumps out at me on that, so no. So then we'll bounce to the, if we have any questions on our activity fund balance report.
None here.
All right, we'll move that forward to the board. 6.3 is our revenue and expenditure report. So I don't know if there's anything of note
I'll just
there.
I can make a few comments on the executive summary and the dashboard, and then take any questions if you have. For the executive summary, we ended January pretty much where we would expect to be for this time of year. We did receive our Q1 MCAT in January, which are a little over $1 million, and that compares to February last year, so that's a good sign. Looking at health insurance, while our average cost of claims per month for the fiscal year is a little bit, or maybe a little more than a little bit, but is greater than last year, we still are tracking with budget. So I think we'll be okay, but we'll keep an eye on that. For the dashboard, looking at revenues, we do have 4 areas there that are flagged in red. Both the CPPRT and the National School Lunch, you'll see that the revenues are greater than last year, and it really is just a timing thing for those. I think we'll be fine in both of those areas by the end of the year. Impact fees, we're just not seeing much.
We're not going to be okay.
Yeah, so that is what it is. Medicaid, we did receive an additional $63,000 in January, and our remittances show we should be getting another $112,000 for January and February. So payments here are lagging. We'll keep an eye on that. I think in the end we'll be okay, but we'll keep an eye there. Expenditures, we just have that one kind of pesky area that shows up as red for the tuition reimbursement, and I know administration is keeping an eye on that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it's usually just timing too, because it's mostly been
It comes up
funded
early during
already,
the year.
right? Yeah.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Yeah. So we should be all right.
That's really all I have. Any questions or comments?
I have none. I don't see anything jumping out that I have questions.
I don't have any. I was trying to come up with something clever to ask you, and I just have nothing.
Yeah, the clever is just not here today. Yeah, no, not much. Yep, pretty plain Janer this month, so that's good. It's good. All right, so we'll move on to 6.4, which is transportation bus bid. Ms. Lombard's gonna
Yes. So, as you may recall, it was a number of years ago, but in the 14-15 school year, put together a comprehensive outlook of our buses and our resources and all of those things. And similar to technology and whatnot, for lack of better words, kind of put a replacement cycle in place for our fleet. And so this has been kind of a process looking at that. In the budget, we look at typically trying to do 7 to 9 buses on an annual basis. And so Laura Hooper put together a bid that went out in February, and the responses were due back mid-February. We only had one bidder who did propose 2 quotes here that we can take a look at. One thing to note is this year we were looking at doing outright purchases for the buses instead of leases. And so both of these are for outright purchases. Very, very, very similar type buses. Everything met the quotes. The difference between quote A and quote B is just 1 seat. It actually is the difference between a two-passenger seat to one of them has a 3-passenger seat in there. But the main reason for quote B being quite a bit lower was the fact that those buses are on the lot ready to go, even though they are very similar type buses. And so the district is recommending going with quote B as they are in stock and do meet all of the specifications. And Laura Hooper is here if you have any specific questions about the bid or the bus specs or anything like that. And both Laura and I have worked with Mr. Altmeyer, so everything is in the budget and kind of already looked at.
Any concern on having basically one company only? Do we feel the rates are competitive and appropriate?
Company that generally bids is Bluebird. And the reason why they have shied away from us, we believe anyways, is their warranty work is only done out of Big Rock, and which is quite a distance away, where Midwest Transit, their warranty work is in Huntley here at the trucking company there. So the turnaround time is much faster for us. So that's why we've always gone with them. And I think that Bluebird has finally realized that we're just not going to take the chance to take 2-3 days when it could only take possibly 1.
Right.
So that's the reason.
Okay. Anybody, compared to last year's prices, I have no recollection of what we paid last year.
It's very similar. Very similar. Yeah.
All right. And these would be delivered for the, like, by like August or whatever for the
The ones that we're recommending can be delivered as early as the end of this month, through till July, and the other ones, quote A, is July, middle of July sometime.
Right, so you got 7 you're trading in.
Yes.
Okay.
Trying to build our fleet a little bit.
Well, that, and the 7 you're probably trading in are probably in the best.
Yes.
Correct. So, okay.
That's
so,
what you want to
but
call
probably
them,
getting
yes.
sooner than later is probably a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're worth $4,000 on trade, huh?
Yeah. Yes, and that's
Scrap metal might
generous.
be
Yeah.
more.
What other than the extra bus seat, is there something to be said about one, quote A, having electronic stability control and it's not listed in B?
That is something that is, within the next couple of years, is going to be a standard on all buses, but it's tied to the ABS system. It's more of a driver's aid. It doesn't take over, but it has sensors that are built into the buses so that if a driver heads into a curve and is too fast of a rate, the bus will slow down on its own. It's also if the driver is aggressive and comes up on a vehicle and senses that it's too close, it'll brake for you. So it won't take over, but it'll assist. So, and then the other one, quote B, the buses have white roofs. That's the only other difference. And the difference between the one that has a white roof and doesn't, in the summer, it's about 15-20 degrees. It's cooler. So that's the only difference. Otherwise, they both have the same specs. Okay?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
To answer your question, Tony, it looks like last year we spent $838,000 on these buses. 10 buses.
Yeah, okay, but one more bus. Okay, which would be right. So it's exactly 80. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or items to discuss?
The buses that we're disposing of, they're the same size as the ones that we're replacing them with?
They,
83s?
The 83s are? Okay. Is it a bus for bus swap out, or are we getting an extra bus because of the
Laura, can you come to
downsizing
the
of the
microphone,
seats? Because we're sending out buses that are 83 seats in size.
and that's also got to do with why we're only trading in 7 of them, so that we have that flexibility a little bit.
Okay.
So,
Part of it's for that, but also to build up the
Right.
fleet a little bit
Yeah.
since.
Okay. Because we're losing, I want to make sure we're not losing seats net.
it sounds like it, but in reality, it's not. It's only maybe 1 or 2 of them.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll be able to juggle it and not having too many issues, so.
Okay, fair
Okay.
enough. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll move it forward.
Yep.
We'll move that forward to the board. Finance is done. Human resource.
All right.
Back to you.
First item up is 7.1, human resource updates. Mr. Zier.
So just a brief update in human resources. We are in full swing for next school year. You'll see on the March personnel report, bringing forward some new teachers, administrative positions. So very busy, very early, which is good, getting out into the market to recruit for our open positions. At the bottom of this memo, we do have some dates that we need to be aware of every year with our days when it pertains to non-renewal and dismissal of teachers, our extracurricular staff. On the next board meeting, you will see that list of extracurricular and activities folks. We dismiss them every year. And then also, if a reduction of force were to be necessary, I've put a date on there for that when all of that needs to be taken care of.
Any questions? Okay. Next up will be the 7.2, reduction of extra contract days.
So the reduction of extra contract days, this will be an action item that will be individually voted on at the next meeting. There will be a resolution to act upon. So anyone who has been given extra days over the 182 contract days, we take those days away, and then we come back with a recommendation later. We reevaluate those days. Guidance counselors, nurses, some other positions that we look at. We work with our administrators at the building to make sure those days are necessary or if more days need to be added. So we'll come back with a recommendation for those days once they're taken away. So that will be a resolution that will be added onto that memo as an action item at the regular board meeting.
So then just to clarify, the agenda has it as an action item, but effectively it's a report at this point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the recommendation is to move that forward for action at the next meeting.
Okay. Next is 7.3, assistant superintendent for special services job description.
So as you know, we have a assistant superintendent for special services position out there that we're recruiting currently. This is the job description that will go along with that position. We would move that forward at the next board meeting, move it to the consent agenda for action. So your basic job description at the end that all employees have, but then specific details for this role at the upper part of that.
Okay. Any questions on that item?
On the description, when it gets
Sure.
to education or experience, do we need to add that they need the certification to be a assistant superintendent?
The certification for an assistant superintendent, that is all that an employee would need. You're talking about the superintendent endorsement. The only position that someone needs to have the superintendent endorsement is the superintendent.
Oh, okay. I'll be darned.
The school
Sorry.
district is required to have one director of special services by state law. We have that. One of our special ed directors currently holds that. This person, for instance, Jessica special ed currently reports to Jessica, and she's not a holder of the directorship. So the leadership at the cabinet level is not required to have that directorship. We just have to have one person in the district, which we do.
And we do have it in here under endorsements as preferred.
Right, and the state-approved special ed director endorsement can be held by a variety of different people, but if they are serving in that role and named by the district as the director, state-approved director, they can only be working in special education. They couldn't have these other responsibilities that fall under them. So they could hold it, but they wouldn't be our named approval person. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions on 7.3? If not, we will carry that forward to the next meeting and turn over to Building and Grounds, Mr. Troy.
Okay, item 8.1 looks like a brief building and grounds agenda for the evening. Mr. Nkosik, anything to highlight on the O&M updates?
Yes, please. Thank you, Paul. For starters, solar. Good news, the renewable energy credits, the first round lottery application process is closed. There will be no lottery. They're reviewing the applications, and if the applications are all in order, they expect everyone to get the allotment of credits. They are behind in review. They had predicted that they would have reviews done by now, and they're not. But the word is they're probably very overwhelmed with applications on the community solar side, and that is probably why they're behind. But it's a very positive outlook on that piece, so we're on to discussion with our partners at Forefront on the next step, which is to begin the navigation of the process to apply for net zero metering as our ComEd utility rate structure, which would then be followed by a construction review with the villages, and so they'd have to start construction documents. So we're talking about the net zero metering and how we're going to navigate going through that application process. Right now, Forefront has a consultant they hired to help their customers be successful in that area. It's not as easy as it sounds to just fill out an application. There are some little twists and turns we'll have to work through, but we're confident we'll get through it. So we'll keep you informed. We've got quite a few new projects on the docket so far, and item number 5, I talked about in the February review there. And in addition, we've got about 3 more that are out to bid right now that we'll be bringing you next month with part of smaller scale projects, a couple life safety projects, and I'm sorry, not life cycle projects, pardon me. And one other one that probably might be a bit surprised the board. We don't expect it to be real expensive, but recognizing that since we're replacing and refurbishing the parking lot at Legee, we ought to look at the site lighting and evaluate, do we need to add a couple of poles to make that equitable lighting like we did at Chesauk and Martin when we renovated that parking lot. I engaged an electrical engineer, and we released a small bid that's adding, I think, 3 or 4 poles. It's not earth-shattering, but it's something that we expect we should bid. Energy Star ratings. There's an attachment here. The news looks worse than it is. I've been doing a lot of research and discussion on this matter. And in 2018, the U.S. EPA decided to change their evaluation process, and they changed it somewhat dramatically. But if you look in the O&M attachment updates, page 3, you'll see that compared to our baseline year 2010, we're doing better in 2019, but 5 buildings fell off the radar to get to the rating of 75 that gets us Energy Star. I've got more information today after my meeting that I was with people that are in the energy business, and next month I'll come back to you with much more detail. I want to just give you some highlights of some things I was just trying to download here to put some information together. What the EPA has done is they've given you the opportunity now to look into your buildings and see, in the new evaluation process, where were they graded back in your baseline year? And there are some grand variations. For example, in the case of Martin School, with the new evaluation tool, the baseline year 2010 grades the same at 49. However, We've dropped in the last 2 years from 84 to 71. On the other hand, if you look at Heinemann, with the new grading tool in the baseline year, it should have been 28. And when we graded it back in the day, it was 49. And now it's 67. Across the board, we're still doing better. If you read the attached handout at all, you'll see where they provide some explanation that they've changed their correlation tool. And the fact of the matter is, everybody's doing better. And this is supposed to be, puts you as you compare to others, and the comparisons are getting tougher. But there are some kilo-BTU evaluation factors that I will be able to grab, and I'll make a more elaborate spreadsheet for the board next month, which will tell us more information on how we've traveled through the process. I will probably, unless there's an interest in more data, I'll put the baseline year, footprint of energy consumption, the 2016 year, which is after the CTS project, and I will put the latest information on there. I think you will see that we are still performing better across the board. We're talking to CTS right now about the idea of possibly looking at it a little further, evaluating if need be, but further evaluation of the Energy Star tool might provide enough information to tell us enough of a story as to what happened, and I'll get back to you next month. At the high school, the fine arts edition, there's a updated schedule in there for you on where our expectation is to where we're expecting to go, and it's all predicated on everybody being available for a series of meetings on certain dates once again. But it's still the construction team's goal to have something delivered for occupancy in the summer of 20. I think that's a very aggressive project schedule, but we've got bids going to the board for review in early August. So we'll keep moving along on that. And lastly, in here is the fourth quarter demand load response earnings statement for the board. And just a reminder, we should look for those to diminish dramatically because they changed the process for that to whereby winter is now still part of the process that you have to be evaluated on your demand consumption baseline that they measure your reduction in an energy reduction call day. So it's going to be a tougher process on that one. We have had banner years where we've gotten a lot more than you saw in this quarterly statement, but it's all at the auction rate for the demand charges that drive the rates that are provided here, and they're very volatile. I will tell you, demand charges continue to go up. So we're doing everything we can. I heard people talk about ways to manage your demand charges again today, and it looks like we're doing all the things that are suggested as opportunities to manage that. In the last couple of months, we brought the board a request to have a system peak provider service for about $6,000 a year. We just got our latest bill, and again, our peak load contributions, which are a multiplier that drive about 40% of our bill, looks like they went down 40%. So that's another part of our bill that's going down. So we're continuing to do everything we can. Thank you.
Any questions from the committee or the board?
Yeah, on that last point that you brought up, didn't we contractually agree how they would be calculating those earnings and those rebates, and they're changing the calculation kind of unilaterally, or am I missing something?
Those rates are calculated. There's a couple of parts of what calculates that rate. One is how did we perform on the test day, and it's becoming tougher for us to perform because we keep doing energy conservation. So when our peak load contributions go down, we can only drop so much more before we hit our baseline, where we have to operate to function as a school district. We're not going to turn all the lights off in the building. We're not going to turn the air conditioning off completely. We're not going to turn the computers off and things. So, sure. In the server room and food service. So we have to consume a baseline amount of energy. But when we're shaving our peaks and we're doing everything we can to be more efficient, the differential, what we can afford to reduce, has changed. And so we are in a program where there is no penalty if we don't meet our goal. and I keep telling our partners, and have an open dialogue about that with them and where we should be. And every year when we do the test, after the test, we get the data on how we performed, and we use that for consideration for the future year, and then it keeps going down.
Okay, so
It's just,
the better you get
it's
at
really a
this, the
sign
less
of that we're
less
doing
you
well.
get to receive.
And then, of course, the other part of it is the rates that we're getting paid are based on those reverse auctions for capacity that I told you about that are a moving target all the time. So it's in our contract is just they get 25% and we get 75% of what PJM is offering at that point in time.
Right.
Any additional questions? Okay, thank you for that report. Item 8.2, O&M vehicle replacement. Mr. Rincon.
Something that's been fairly routine in recent years. We try to keep our vehicles on a rotation to trade them in, and it's served us well to keep our repair costs down. And what we're recognizing again is this is the highest we've ever gotten for a trade-in on what's being offered for the trade-in this year with a vehicle that's got 62,000 hard miles on it. Cost of the vehicle, it's a state contract rate. And that's, I don't think you could go buy this truck for this price with the base price, sticker price at $20,940. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Any questions from the board? Any objection to moving this forward then? Okay, no objections, we'll move it forward. That's it for O&M updates. So legislation, Mr. Fleck.
Was it last week? Yeah. Wow, time flies. Last week we were, Dr. Rowe, Mr. Altmaier, and I had a chance to go down to the Alliance Leadership Summit in Springfield. It was a 2-day event with some speakers, some topics that had to do with legislation and learning about lobbying and how that works, how it doesn't work, etc. We also had an opportunity to meet with our new local legislators that were down there. Actually, I'll leave some of that for Dr. Rowe to talk about. And what I wanted to focus on was our first speaker. Really had the pleasure to hear Dr. Jeff McCausland, who's a retired U.S. Army colonel. He speaks nationally on and teaches on various topics, including history. But he gave the morning keynote presentation on leadership, and he tied it into the life of President Lincoln, which was quite good. I was really engaged by how he showed how the different styles of leadership worked for Lincoln, how they may not work for some of our leaders today, and it was really, really very compelling. So I was glad we had a chance to go. I really enjoyed the trip down there.
So the topics that I would add is to build upon what Mr. Fleck said. We did have the opportunity to meet with, for the first time, with our new representative, Ugasti, who replaced Steve Anderson, who primarily down up the Fox Valley. He is the representative for our Del Webb community. It's the first opportunity that I had to connect with Mr. Ugasti, and it was first impressions really impressed. He seems like a really genuine person who wants to work with us. He has a lot to learn when it comes to education, and he recognizes that and is open about that. But he's eager to learn, and he spent a good amount of time speaking with us as well as Batavia and St. Charles representatives. The three big topics that we're going to be watching down in Springfield this session is the $40,000 a year minimum salary for teachers bill, 5 clock hour day, and the PE bill. And to kind of break those down a little bit further, while some of them may not impact us directly, they're of great concern statewide, and they will have impact for us. The $40,000 bill is a bill by Senator Andy Minar seeking to change the minimum salary that a teacher is legally paid in the state of Illinois to $40,000. That's currently $9,000 that was adopted back in, I believe, 1978. Obviously, the landscape of education and the cost of living has changed dramatically. The difficult, I mean, of course, it's for the record, it's important to state, we all, of course, want our teachers to be paid a livable and competitive wage, and think teachers should be paid more than $40,000 for the value that they bring to our communities. The challenge here is while we pay more than $40,000 as a starting salary, many of the downstate districts who have a very low property value regular income that's coming in and their budget looks very different than ours, they don't have the means to do so. And you know, as a formal stance, I think the issue that I take with this is it takes away that ability of local control for us to decide how much we can afford to pay our teachers. This will cripple some school districts downstate. So that's a big topic being discussed around. I do believe it's going to happen. I don't think there's much that anyone's going to be able to do to stand in the way of this. The other bill is the 5 clock hour a day bill, which is Senator Bertino Tarrant, who is the chair of the Education Committee, very boldly stated that she supports the $40,000 bill. I apologize. But the 5 clock hour a day is something it's been in place for years. As the minimum for, right, she supports that as well. Sponsor it. So it's the minimum of what a school day could be counted when average daily attendance was what supported some of our funding. So this is what went away when the evidence-based funding model was adopted. IEA filed a bill to bring it back with Senator Bertino Tarrant as the sponsor. Fortunately for us and some of the lobbyists that represent us, there's been active communication back and forth, and it's been open and good dialogue from what I understand to potentially add some, I guess, make some concessions to allow more flexibility into the school day if the 5 hour a day does pass, and it comes back to that being the minimum allowed. Primarily the potential use for e-learning days for emergency makeup. We understand where where Senator Bertino Tarrant is coming from and where IEA is coming from in terms of the 5 clock hour. We are aligned in the philosophy of the value the teacher provides, and do not believe that an e-learning day can replace the teacher on a regular basis. Nor should we be looking to cut back our school day, and nor are we interested in cutting back our school day to save costs or anything of that nature. Our opposition to this stands solely in the desire to have flexibility in what the learning environment looks like. So I'm very pleased that the conversation has been happening downstate. I know John Berkey has been very active in keeping us informed of this. And then the third is the PE bill. And the PE bill is a really bad bill, bottom line. It is in the fact that we are one of, and I did not know this before we went to this event, we are one of the only school districts in the entire state who already has 150 minutes in elementary, and I believe it's 245 in high school, basically PE every day. So this will not affect us. We're in good position. However, the majority of school districts don't have PE every day, and you're talking doubling of PE staff. Again, students need physical activity. They need the ability to move around, but it's not a financially feasible situation to demand it when just 2 years ago a bill passed that allowed for flexibility in reducing the number of days for PE. So the frustrating thing is here's more flexibility, now we're going to take the flexibility away, depending on who's in office. And it gets really frustrating and difficult for us to manage. So fortunately, that last bill, it won't affect us. We have no intention of reducing our number of days of PE, even with the flexibility that we've had. But again, local control is something that we believe in because budgets are locally dependent. So those were the big updates, the big topics. We had a panel of senators and representatives that came in and shared some of their feedback, primarily the importance in communicating with their representatives downstate. Unfortunately, we, for the most part, with the people who represent us, we have open lines of communication, and they're very interested in what we have to say, again, for the most part.
And to tag along to that, they made it very clear that the makeup in Springfield now is we have a Democrat in the governorship, we have Democrat-controlled House and Senate, and they're super majorities too. And one thing that they impressed upon us, which I actually thought was a pretty good argument, was it's not just R's and D's, because within that supermajority of D's, there is a lot of different policies and philosophies about how that looks. So just because it's a supermajority doesn't mean that things are just going to get steamrolled through and rubber stamped. There's going to be a lot of debate and discussion. There is going to be reaching across the aisle going on. Now, this is all in theory. The governor's been there for how long? A month? So we'll see how it plays out. But it's important to be very aware of what that makeup is in Springfield. And the concept of local control, the reason our district, I think, functions so well is that we do have that local control, and we are able to try things and do things. If that starts being taken away from us, we're going to have our hands tied with what we can do with our innovative programs that have been very, very effective for us. So that's why we need to stay on top of that. The other thing that we did was just yesterday. Dr. Rowe, Ms. Melendi, Mr. Troy, and I went to the Kishwaukee Region Association of School Boards regional meeting yesterday in Genoa, Kingston, who put on a great event for us. But I want to turn it over to Mr. Troy. He's a delegate for IASB, so I'll let you share your thoughts.
Thank you. So the topic of the evening, I'm just going to read straight from the mailer that we received, had to do with distress to success involving policies and practices to strengthen student well-being. And the presenter's name was Dr. Max McGee, who is the president of Hazard, Young, Attia, and Associates. I'm familiar with the name because that was one of the firms that does the superintendent search. I did not realize that they also do things like what this particular gentleman presented. And although his presentation was admittedly cut short, he said that he spends, a day or 2 days on this type of presentation, and he shortened his complete presentation in no matter of 20 minutes. So he breezed right through a lot of the slides, but overall he was trying to convey the importance of looking at and understanding social emotional well-being for our students. I was actually floored by some of the material that he presented. Yes, it was statistics based. It had to do with student suicide rates. But equally important are the things that school districts can do to try and find that emotional stability for students in light of a lot of the pressures and demands that they face today. One of the things that stuck with me had to do with cell phones in the classroom, but more so the social media that the kids use nowadays. I know my kids use it, but I guess I didn't understand the depth to which the kids use it and the material that is posted on there. I knew, but I don't know, right? You try and you try, but you're as familiar with the material as what your kids show you. And some of the things that he was describing actually just shouldn't surprise me, but yet it did. And two of the social mediums that he was targeting, I believe, were Instagram and Snapchat. And so it was. I found the topic very compelling, to the point where one of the feedback items that I sent back to IASB would be if they were to continue something like this in more of a series style, so that we as school board members, when we get this kind of exposure and training, we can build on that rather than just have a 20-minute presentation and here's a sheet of paper with the different resources that that presenter has used. So if there's anything that I left out or you'd like to cover, that's really all I have to add to that.
No, I echo your sentiment. And I walked away from there not fully appreciating what the students are going through even at a very young age, certainly all the way through high school when they start feeling the pressure of AP and I got to get into this school and I got to do that. And it's not to be taken lightly. I know you educators know that already, but this was very eye-opening for us. I think it's something that we need to think about a little more closely. I think the programs we're putting in place for social and emotional learning and doing it at a very young age are going to be absolutely critical in the success of the students, their well-being, how to deal with these things that we didn't have to deal with when we were growing up. You know, we went to bed and we didn't have a cell phone sitting next to us that we could hear all our friends talking all night long. It doesn't shut off for them, and it's kind of true for us too as adults. But we have some better tools that a lot of the students have. Well, sort of. I don't want to get too psychological, but it is something that really touched us, and I think I'm glad that this district is recognizing that and getting out in front of it. Okay, thank you. That's it for legislative. Next is Board of Education. It says me, but it's really minutes. Mr. Troy, you're the secretary. I don't know if you have anything to say about the minutes as presented. Does anybody have any questions, comments about those?
Just that they're presented. If there's any corrections or any kind of modifications that need to be made, please either myself or Julie, Mrs. Stock, and then we'll make those adjustments accordingly before they're submitted for approval.
Yeah, otherwise we'll move those forward for consent agenda. All right, it is 7:13. I will make a motion to go into closed session for the items listed in the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Did I hear Ms. Walker?
That's fine.
Okay, very good. Roll call.
Mrs. Walker.
Here.
Mrs. Melendi. Mr. Guerin. Mr. Fleck.
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano. Mr. Gentry.
Yes.
Mr. Troy.
Yes.
Okay, we are in closed session. Thank you.
So quiet.